invited by Merv Neil to launch the Laughter channel at the Laughter Wellbeing Conference in Sydney on October the 27th, 2017. All was going well until around about 7:20 a.m. on the morning, I fell in the rain on my way walking up to the conference venue. I tore my right knee open, tearing a about a 10 centimetre gaping wound. I wasn't going anywhere. I texted Merv to advise of the dilemma and sent him a photo, as you do. And the first man arrived with a wonderful big umbrella and protected me from the elements and called an ambulance. At that point, I couldn't get up and stand. And he and two other men waited with me until the ambulance arrived. I was transported across to the Royal Prince Alfred Hospital. The wound was sutured and at 10:30 a.m. was released. At that point I thought, well, if I go back to the hotel, I'll just sit there on my own. If I head off to the venue, at least I'll be in company, especially if I need some support. So off I went. When I arrived, Merv's eyes practically goggled in his head when he saw me. And we colluded then to surprise the audience, who understood for obvious reasons that I was going to be a no-show. And so that it was, under fairly difficult circumstances, I hobbled in from the back of the room and took over from Merv, who was making out like he was stealing my show. On many levels, I'm really glad all of this happened. Folks, I bring you Anthony Ackroyd.
Which is patching you, baby.
It's a profound privilege to be here at the 2017 Laughter Wellness Conference, and also thank you to Merv Neil, for inviting me to come and present the launch. This is a program that's been on my wish list since 2004, born following my tour with Patch Adams. Needed the interceding years to gather the knowledge and the expertise to now be ready to launch a 13-part series. Each episode will be 30 minutes long and designed to lift spirits and shift stinking thinking around the globe. When the 13 episodes are completed, it will be available on Foxtel, on Aurora Foxtel, but it'll also be available online. My guest today is Anthony Ackroyd, and I am so pleased to have you be part of this beginning. Probably before I proceed, I'd like to say special thanks to somebody. Patch Adams is patron of the program, and any of you who've ever tried to be in touch with Patch doesn't have a computer, so if you want to engage with Patch, you've got to write him a letter. And he always writes back. And so he wrote when I invited him, "Dear Pat, great to hear from you and that you are doing well and trying to infect others. Thank you for the offer of patron and for helping Maria, who is still going full blast and better. I still don't have a computer, but you can set up an interview with my assistant, etc." So, treasured moments. Patch writes about 400 of these a month, all handwritten. So the joy is being spread in so many ways. Anthony, at the age of 16, you became Australian schoolboy public speaking champion when you won Rostrom's Voice of Youth competition.
This is true.
You've also been a Commonwealth debating champion. You graduated from the University of Tasmania with a Bachelor of Arts and started doing stand-up in the 80s.
This is all true, Pat. Yes, I can confirm all that.
I got really excited and I started to show my age when you told me you'd had regular spots on Hey Hey It's Saturday. because I always liked unintended Dickie knee.
You'll have to explain that to your viewing audience.
Yes, the preceding 3 hours have been a bit of trauma. I fell on the way. Funny thing happened on the way to the show. I had a fall, created a 50-centimetre tear in my right knee, which instantly created, out of the universe, 3 handsome men with umbrellas. Then there was some railway emergency crew, and then 6 firemen.
You were on fire. And hey, let's hope we have the audience in stitches.
Yes.
Oh, this is, I'm just on fire myself with comedy energy.
So I've been sutured, and to Merv's surprise and myself, returned in time.
Are you on any powerful drug that we should know about?
I am, but I'm not going to tell you the names.
Do you have any left over?
Anthony.
Yes.
I love when someone's so responsive. One of the things that I love that you've done is the work you did as a clown doctor.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So tell me about that.
After having a successful career in stand-up comedy and reaching kind of a level where I was known nationally, and if fame is being recognised everywhere you go, then I'd attain that status, because everywhere I'd go. And this was weird when you become well known as a comic. It's not exactly like being Brad Pitt, where people go, oh, it's him. Oh. Instead, they look across and go, so it's a different kind of notoriety. So I'd had a lot of that kind of energy from audiences, and I did thousands of gigs all over Australia and overseas. And I really reached a point where I achieved a lot of the ambitions I'd set out to achieve, and a certain kind of emptiness had set in. And I decided then that, hey, why not have a bit of a private life and focus on that area? Because as you mentioned, since about the age of 16, I've been on a stage. After being an incredibly shy, very withdrawn, introverted child, suddenly on stage, it was, party time. That's where I felt really comfortable. So I'd done that as a speaker, a debater, as a singer in a rock band, as an actor, and then as a comic. And so I took some time out, and I decided, actually at one point, I was going to become serious. Isn't that terrible? But you have so much of this producing laughter, and so much of people going, oh, now I'm going to be serious. And I still remember the moments when I was in my serious mode, and I was driving. I was living in Bondi at the time. I was driving my kids to Centennial Park, and I was in my serious mode. And they started laughing in the back and just having fun and poking fun at me and trying to get me to laugh. And I'm a serious guy. All that comedy's in my past. And I pulled up at the playground at Centennial Park. And my kids were 3 and 6, and they jumped out and they ran towards the play equipment, the slides and the fort. And I'll never forget this snapshot moment when they both just raised their arms and shouted out, "Let's play!" And I got it. I thought, this is ridiculous. I don't want to be the serious guy, and I can do a lot more good in the world by not being quote-unquote serious than being this kind of, profound, quotation marks definitely, human being. There's a lot of profundity in just silliness and joy and absurdity. So I didn't want to go back to doing stand-up and being public, so I became a clown doctor. For 4 years, it was my job to go into hospitals. We always work with a partner, another clown doctor. I was Dr. Silly Billy. And I had my colourful coat, I had a set of props, and our job was to walk into the rooms of the children's wards and just create an energy of fun and laughter and get the kids back in touch with the true joyous being that we all are, but kids are very close to it. So we worked in oncology departments, kids having chemo, in burns units, kids with serious burns, sometimes with breakages, and you had to really present that energy of, for a start, we just look weird. You know, this is not the normal doctor, would be the first reaction, and then you take out some silly prop, like something that would rattle or hum, or often you'd lead with bubbles. Bubbles are good. So you blow some bubbles around the corner of a room, and the kid's going, I don't think this is my normal checkup. And then you bounce in and you hit the kid with a bad joke. You know, what do you call a dog that loves bubble baths? Do you know that? A shampoodle. Everyone knows that. Come on. And the worse the joke was, the more the kid would kind of react. It's kind of, I can do better than that. They get interested. And it was a beautiful experience. And I did that for 4 years, had many profound experiences, and saw just the absolute power of laughter to shift energy, because the kids, the families, the doctors, the nurses, everyone would respond to this burst of energy. So it was beautiful.
Yeah. One of the things that I've loved about being in that space as well, I toured with Patch Adams, and it's about creating that high trust environment, and you can't use humour unless you have a trusting relationship. And for me, to be good humoured is to be appropriately responsive or not, and to know when you can do either. On the bus with Patch, sitting with me one day, and he said, well, he was telling me about his mother, who's a diabetic, and she had recently had right leg amputated and recovering, and he was beside her as she was waking up for the anaesthetic. And as her eyelids were fluttering, he's patting her on the hand and going, now, Ma, now you know what it's like to have one foot in the grave. So only Patch could have said that to his mother.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Only in relationship could that extremist be taken. But you can use that humour to shift people.
Absolutely.
That's what I like.
Yeah, and I take your point there, and we would always ask permission to come into someone's room, of course. We'd say, can we come in? You know, promise it'll be fun, and then we'd show them a prop, and usually we'd get in. And I guess that, you know, just that works with everyone, really, even socially. In a way, you're always asking permission. And the more you learn about laughter and how to create humour, the better you become at asking that permission. It can just be a smile sometimes, and sometimes you get the vibe, yes, smile more. Sometimes you get the vibe, I'm going away now. You know, and I think that's where you need a little bit of courage if you're going to be a laughter spreader, just socially. Sometimes you have to take a little bit of a risk and talk to the checkout person, see what response you get. But it's a great adventure, and you know, and Patch is of course a hero to us all. And you know, you're so lucky to do that tour with him. It's been incredible.
You know, I returned from that trip feeling more vital and alive than I've ever felt in my whole life. And it wasn't just because of the fun, it was because on that mood barometer we experienced it all. And we were present to it all, and that is such a vital place to be sitting in. You know, we're not meant to be happy all the time. That's not how this body is built.
Indeed.
The other thing that I've been a real proponent of with the use of humour is about building that trusting relationship. And one of the first videos that I watched of you last week was you stepping up to the lectern. You were about to do one of your impersonations of Mr. Rudd, and you had the wig on, and you looked to the left, and you looked to the right, and you had said nothing, and they just burst into peals of laughter. So the one thing that I'm getting is, that's it. That's like, for me, that's instant rapport.
Yeah, it is. It's really, you know, as a professional laughter performer, where your job is to go out there and create humour and laughter with you, the way you look, the way you talk. When I started in stand-up, I used to go out and say nothing and just hold the energy for about 30 seconds to a minute. And if anyone said something, I just kind of react to them. And I'd start to get laughs, and people were just intrigued with what is going on here. And then I'd look like this timid mouse, and then I'd just burst into a rather ribald version of these are a few of my favourite things, which I won't mention on your sophisticated TV show, but it was appropriate for the Comedy Store in the 80s. But a lot of it, as you're saying, is energy. And with Rudd, I would go out there and just do the Rudd, glasses thing and the smile, and just, as someone said, timing is having the courage to wait. And sometimes, when I teach people how to tell stories and how to tell jokes, people want to rush on because there's a kind of nervousness. I want to get this over with. I want to get to the funny part. You have to take that risk sometimes, technically, just to create a setup, and then you pay it off with your gag. So work well with Rudd. Give them the look, give them the Rudd smile, and then give them ladies and gentlemen. And it was accurate enough with the wig for people to go, oh, right. And people used to say, it's weird what happens when you impersonate someone. And people used to say to me, oh, you're such a nicer Kevin Rudd than the real one. And I knew what they meant because I found the clown in Kevin Rudd. So I wasn't really Kevin Rudd, everyone knew that. But I found a kind of sweetness there, and I'm even finding the silliness in Donald Trump, who I'm now impersonating. So that took me a while to find something that people could hook onto and laugh, because a lot of people aren't that enamoured of the Donald, particularly in our country. So it is finding that humour. You become a kind of humour private detective and then a public performer after you detect the humour. So, yeah.
Do you think there's a difference between a sense of humour and a sense for humour?
I do, and I think that's a good distinction, really. And people will ask me, "Oh, were you always funny? You must have been the class clown." I was not. But I found my place on stage. But I didn't grow up being the life of the party. And everyone has a sense of humour. That's how I'd answer that question. And I call it a person's humour fingerprint, because everyone in our room, everyone watching at home would have their unique sense of humour. Whereas having a sense for humour, if I understand you correctly, is being able to turn that sense of humour because you want to do it in some kind of way that is a performance or in writing, and that's a completely different skill set. But people can get better at that as well. I guess it's like, I'm never going to go to the Olympics and challenge Usain Bolt, but I've got better at running because in my hometown of Barrel there's a mountain. It's a small mountain, but I run around it, so I've got better at running. But and with comedy, people have different gifts, and they can develop it to a different level.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you mentioned a couple of things. You mentioned courage, so I like that word. And I actually have a confession to make.
Share, unburden yourself. Yes, my daughter.
And I'm doing it, taking a little step of courage, given our short association. Last week I was talking to a friend and I said, no one knows, but I'm interviewing you today.
Yeah.
It's not been released to the media or anything. And I said, if you were there, what would you ask? And she said, what was it again? Ackroyd. Oh, yeah. She said, well, what's he doing since Ghostbusters?
Yeah, it does happen. I'd like to point out to the viewing audience, as I do to everyone when this comes up, that cousin Dan Ackroyd, one of the Blues Brothers, spells his name Ackroyd is my name, but he has a different spelling of his name. So we are different.
Thank you for that.
Yeah, but I'm not Dan Ackroyd. I want to make that clear. Although I'd like his money. That would be fantastic if you're out there, cousin Dan. Just send it.
Future pacing. What are you most excited or curious about for the world of humour?
The world of humour. Well, I think we are we're kind of at a threshold moment in terms of our understanding of humour and laughter. And we've progressed as a species to place more value on humour and laughter, and all this research that is happening, conferences like the one we're at the moment, is really bringing to the forefront the just many amazing benefits of humour for health, for the way we operate in terms of our relationships with each other, in changing in neuroplasticity, in changing actually the way our minds operate. So there's many frontiers now that are being explored in many different areas, and I think it's a really exciting time for humour. You know, we're coming to really value it, and it's getting up there, and its status is growing in academic circles, and there's more knowledge, and there's more people like these people really embracing humour and taking it into the world. So it's an exciting time.
Yes, it is. Yeah. Since 2001, I have distributed over 10,000 pieces of black mail. I'd like to say this was exactly 10,001, but I'm not quite sure. But I would like to issue you that as well. Thank you so much. Thank you for joining us at the national launch of the Laughter Channel, where human interest meets humour interest. And I have a message from Patch. There is no hope for human survival if we don't change to a loving world. There's no hope for rich people in the future, no hope for anybody, if we don't make a world whose values are compassion and generosity. We'll see you next time on the Laughter Channel. Can we turn the camera and get
some
us in
audience
the
shots.
audience?
Yeah.
Is that possible?
Sure.